Joining us today, Superintendent Paul Austin, Deputy Superintendent Jamie LaBillois, and Hingham High School Principal Rick Swanson. And this is a follow-up to our previous conversation that we've had with Hingham Public Schools about remote learning in this new normal. Superintendent Austin, let's catch us up on where the district is on a whole as it relates to your remote learning through the rest of the school year.
Sure. Thank you, Joe, and thanks for the opportunity to come in and share this information with both you and the community. At this time, the district has gone now through 3 basic phases of remote learning. If you recall, way back in March, our first remote learning that came out was guidance regarding just making sure that we kept students engaged with voluntary enrichment activities, which was the first 3 weeks. We then launched our first true remote learning program that we received guidance from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education regarding, again, keeping students connected, also making sure that we're addressing the social emotional needs of our students, and keeping them up to date, so to speak, on their academic pursuits. It wasn't necessarily engaging in new learning, but certainly reinforcing the learning that had been happening. And now the district and Dr. LaBillois and our administrators and directors have worked hard on creating a version, Remote Learning Plan 2.0, which the public has now seen, and we're in the process of now rolling out to the community. We are in that phase where the teachers are having in their hands and they're making adjustments to the new 2.0 learning, and we have full implementation by hopefully the 18th of May. That'll take us to the end of the school year.
You know, what's interesting, I wanted to share a couple of sound bites that I picked up on the national grid, so to speak, as it relates to remote learning. I'm going to quickly tick them off. One parent says, "Teachers deserve $1 billion a year," quipped one parent in a viral tweet. Others have posted cheekier but equally supportive messages. I don't know if you've seen this graphic of a van where someone spray painted on the window, "You lied. My kids are not a joy to have in class." The source being EdSurge, the date of May 6th of this year. What has been the overall reaction of parents, and what are you hearing back? And please take turns, both yourself, Dr. Austin, as well as Dr. LaBillois, and as well Principal Swanson. Each take your turn of that.
Yeah. I'll start off. I think that first of all, and I appreciate the sentiments to the teachers and the work they're doing. I think there is no question that we have thrust them into a new world very quickly without a lot of background and training, per se, to get ready for it. Last week was National Teacher Appreciation Week, and I think it's very fitting that people really did respond to the work of the teachers. I can't say enough about the way that our teachers have responded to the needs of the community, and I tell them regularly that how much we appreciate what they do and understand that it's not easy, and that we've asked them to do things that are uncomfortable and new, and yet they've continued to rise to the occasion. They have really stepped up their game, and they're doing their very best to meet the needs of all children. Now, we also know that we serve over 4,000 students in Hingham, and so those needs are incredibly vast. And so when you ask about the response from the community, most of it is very positive. There's no question that people truly appreciate what the teachers are doing. However, what we also notice is that there are 3 pretty distinct groups of parents that we see in regards to the needs of the students. One, we have a group of parents that what we provide is too overwhelming. They have other situations in the home. You know, they're trying to do 2 jobs. They've got, children of various ages and in either grades, potential different grades or even not in school yet. So they have their own needs at home. And then you have a group of parents that seem to feel that what we're doing is right on target. It kind of strikes that balance between, academic work and yet meeting the needs of the family in diverse times. And then we have a group of students, our parents, that are not pleased with what we're doing, and it feels like it's not enough for them. And I really understand each group and how we approach these things, and I respect their opinions. And every day, I know my administrators and we continue to work to see how we can adjust to meet the needs of as many people as possible. But it has been a challenge to this whole process. And I want to go back to the appreciation of teachers. They've done a remarkable job of trying to adjust and adapt to an ever-changing and very uncertain landscape.
Dr. LaBillois, you want to add to that?
I would, yeah. I mean, I would echo Dr. Austin's initial thoughts. The district put together, so when the governor extended the closure through the end of the academic year, the district put together a parent community survey to collect feedback on what had been working well so far with remote learning 1.0, the first iteration of that plan, and what areas we could improve and how our communication had been and sort of what people's experiences were in the home that we felt would better inform sort of any revisions to our plan. And so we had just under 2,000 respondents, so 1,952 people responded to our survey. Again, what we noticed from the results of that survey was most of our families felt like it had been going well. We had about half of our families where we were put on notice that families were experiencing a level of social and emotional stressors in their home due to a variety of reasons that we had to be aware of, and that's where many of the sort of the specific instances that Dr. Austin mentioned really sort of came to life for us, is sort of people writing to us and explaining what's happening in their own home and sort of what is challenging about that, but also what's working well. But the number one biggest theme that came out of that survey was parents and community members really wanting more interactions with our faculty and staff. And so when we think about the major shifts in remote learning 2.0, the biggest shift is sort of an expectation of live connections between our faculty and our students, sort of across the board. We had a good number of our faculty who are already engaging in those kind of experiences. Now, while there certainly are some in the community who do believe that we should be providing live synchronous teaching and learning every single day, so you wake up at 8 o'clock and you log into Zoom and there's your math teacher, and at 9 o'clock is your English teacher, and at 11 is your history teacher. But given the reality of the global pandemic and the shutdown across the globe, really, we had to sort of find ways to sort of meet the need of that live connection, which again, our first priority continues to be the social and emotional wellness of our students, faculty, and community members. And so that sort of feedback that we received from the community really helped us to sort of hopefully tailor a plan for the remainder of the school year that meets both the needs of our students, but also of our parents and our community members, as well as our faculty and staff who are also dealing with, their own family situations and could be dealing with their own children or young children that historically they could leave with daycare or be in school themselves, to then free them up to be more available to the students that they're teaching. And so the reality of the situation we've been handed, we really do feel as if we try our best to listen to that feedback and to make the appropriate adjustments so that everybody feels that their input and feedback was valued and heard and acted upon.
Principal Swanson.
Thank you, Joe. I certainly would agree with all the sentiments that I heard expressed by Dr. Austin and Dr. LaBillois. We've been in the midst of a time unlike any of us have ever experienced before, it goes without saying. And over the course of what is now 2 months of remote learning in one form or another, I think we've made some important strides forward. And to answer your question in terms of how's it been received by the community, although it's hard to give a single answer to that question, given the diversity of opinion that exists within any community, and particularly a community of this size. Overwhelmingly, the feedback that I've received has been positive. And of the many hundreds of emails that I have read and responded to, I can hardly think of more than a few that didn't include several thank yous and several recognitions within the text of those emails, of how hard our teachers are working and how much people appreciate the efforts of our school administration, and particularly of our teachers, to try to preserve the connections that are so vital to our community, and to preserve the real sense of community that is a hallmark of our high school, and I think of all the hallmark of all the schools in our district. That's been at the forefront of our thinking in terms of our goals. What matters most to us, it's staying connected with our families and staying connected with our students. And I think our teachers have worked really, really hard to preserve those connections. It's been no small feat, and it has been an exhausting experience for everybody at the school. And I know it's been a huge challenge for our families as well. But I think we've also seen a lot of validation in the communications that we've been receiving, validation of what we've built here. And I've heard a lot of remarks from parents along the lines of, my son or daughter maybe never fully realized how much he or she values their teachers and their connections with the other people at the school. And now that they can't be there every day, they really, really miss it. And when I compare this to, the feeling that we used to get on a snow day when people would cheer, we don't have to go to school today, or maybe we get a second day and we can stay home. That is so far in the rearview mirror now. People, I think, are desperate to get back to see the people who mean so much to them. And we've seen very clear proof of how much those relationships mean to people. And it's been a challenge to find ways to preserve those connections, but we're looking hard for them. And I think we have found some good strategies, and we'll continue to do that going forward. And it certainly reinforced my sense of how grateful I am to work in a community that does value schools as much as this one does.
Principal Swanson, let's stay with you for a minute. And let's talk about graduation. I know it had to be a very difficult decision that the district had to make in terms of, postponing the in-person and mass type graduation. I believe pushing that out now to where? Early September, is that correct?
Well, we have set a backup date for August 1st. And our feeling was this was probably about as far into the summer as we could go without risking the loss of a bunch of students who may be, I guess if they're lucky, able to head off to college by that point. Unfortunately, there are some students who will be heading off for their future plans as early as mid-June. Several students who are entering the military and have made commitments to serve our country. And so one of the hardest parts of the decision was knowing that if we pushed it back beyond mid-June, that we would risk losing at least a few students. And certainly if we pushed back beyond August 1st, I think we'd be losing many students. So what we're hoping to do now is some sort of a hybrid approach in which we will try as hard as we can to make possible some kind of awards ceremony before mid-June, so that whether this happens in person or if it needs to happen virtually, which is clearly the second best option, our hope is to find some strategy for an in-person event, whether it's a drive-in or drive-through event of some kind, in which we can provide academic awards, athletic awards, and other forms of recognition for our students. Typically, we have a whole host of award ceremonies, particularly for seniors, in the week leading up to graduation. So we'd like to preserve some kind of event there at which we could perhaps award diplomas to those students entering the military, and then hold on to diplomas for everybody else until August 1st, at which point we really would hope to have an in-person event, again, of some kind. We don't know what it would look like. It will really hinge on what sort of guidelines exist at that point around social distancing. But we'll keep our fingers crossed for preserving some kind of in-person event on August 1st. It's going to take some good luck for that to happen, but we're going to try. And if there's a way to preserve it, we will.
Let's shift gears for a minute. I'd like to know, as we see remote learning, particularly in the K-12 space, as well as in the higher ed space, becoming more mainstream in this new normal as we look forward. Not to suggest that students wouldn't be going to school, but it seems to suggest that remote learning in some iteration is probably here to stay, if but only to enhance the in-classroom experience. Superintendent Austin, would you want to weigh in on that position?
Yeah, I think you raise an incredibly important point, Joe. And one of the things the administrators and I have been talking about for a little while now is really thinking about, what does summer look like? Are we going to be able to have any type of summer school? What does the fall reopening look like? It's much anticipated. And as much as we would all love to see business as usual, and our doors are open and us doing the exact same things that we have done for decade after decade, I think we've all come to the realization that may not very well be the case. And so actually when we've been talking and kind of brainstorming what it might look like, we're forming actually now some working committees to begin forward thinking of what that looks like. So one of the things that I've just done is created a new response recovery advisory committee. And that committee is actually made up of school personnel and teachers and administrators, myself, Dr. LaBillois, and our business manager, Mr. Ferris, and Dr. Vinnis, our director of student services, as well as public health officials, elected town officials, the police and fire departments, people from all over the town, so we can begin to look at all of the issues that we're going to face as we reopen. We are going to have some parents on that. We're going to have parent representation from the elementary, middle, and high school level as well. So we are all well versed in the needs of our students, so we can begin to address those many issues for the time to come. From that group, there will be multiple committees underneath that, such as I've asked Dr. LaBillois to head up a education and social emotional learning committee that'll look at the needs of our student and have different scenarios perhaps about what education might look like in the fall. And so is remote learning part of that? I think you're absolutely correct, Joe. We know that we have to take what we've learned this year, and we're still learning a great deal from this. This is something that we constantly have connections with our neighboring districts to discuss what's going well, what's working well, and we are just absorbing as much as we can in a very short period of time, so that we know that if we have to do some sort of remote learning, whether that's to reinforce what we're doing, or in the event that we have to still somehow continue through remote learning for a little bit longer, we need to be ready for a different way of doing business. We know that what we're doing now isn't horribly sustainable. We know that it doesn't meet the needs of all of our students, so we need to be prepared for that. And those are the thinking that we have now, of where we are going in the future. So we're beginning that work. We want to be proactive in this. We need to be aggressive in determining what those things are going to be, so that we can make sure that our teachers have the skills necessary, that our students and our teachers both have the technology necessary to move forward, because we haven't talked about technology, but just the differences in what we have for ability and our capacity has to be expanded greatly in a time that is frankly chaotic in the finance world. As I'm sure we'll talk another time about what is the financial outlook for the district. That is going to be a challenge. We know that this shutdown is going to have great impact on the economy, and how that impact comes down on the school system is not yet known. So all of these things have to be worked on right now, so we can begin a transition. And I hope of all hopes, just like Rick talked about, a graduation that we all want to participate in and we all want to see, and we want to honor our very deserving seniors, but we want to also bring our students back in to a school setting that they miss very much, and that our teachers honestly miss very much of providing to our students. So it goes both ways.
Dr. LaBillois, let's talk for a minute without naming names. Let's talk about instructional materials and support services in this new normal, as we are now in remote learning 2.0.
Sure.
Your partners, that being your publishing education materials partners, your technology partners, your assessment partners, what is it that you would like to see come to the fore in continuing to support the needs of remote learning 2.0 and beyond?
That's a great question. I would really like to see is our teachers in front of our kids again, with live connections in school, sort of doing what these people have been trained to do, and sort of culturally what we're used to. I think, what's interesting is we're getting a lot of sales pitches, as you can imagine, all trying to be a solution for a dilemma, frankly, that nobody saw coming. I think that if we're to be thoughtful, sort of in terms of the next iteration and sort of what might come in the future, it's really around embracing a blended model of learning. And I don't know that, to be fair, any one vendor or any one tool really, and this is true of teaching in general, right? Like, so no one methodology works. It's really about sort of giving our teachers tools for their toolboxes to be able to make the most educated decision possible, with having strong knowledge and of tools that have sort of really firm pedagogical underpinnings, right? So it just can't be a new flashy tool because we're in a global shutdown and schools are closed, and so try my product. This will make this easier. At the heart of the relationship that we have with this community is around teaching and learning and teaching their children. And so I think as we think to the future, what's really going to be sort of, I think one of the benefits of sort of this experience, and I have to think of it as sort of what we learn from going through what we're going through. I'm not suggesting it's a benefit that we're not in school. What I'm saying is the situation sort of has opened our eyes to sort of the reality that a traditional model of education really should be sort of sufficiently coupled with appropriate technological resources, with appropriate technological tools that sort of make us bring us to a point where we're working smarter and not harder, right? And so I think, what I would like to see is sort of assessment systems built on key knowledge and skills that are aligned to the Massachusetts curriculum. Those, believe it or not, are not as easily found as one may think, particularly in a community such as Hingham, where we have such a high expectation of student achievement and performance that often our students outperform that norm group to which they're compared against, and then renders the entire system unhelpful. I think that having an ability to assess the extent to which what we're doing is impactful on student learning and student achievement and student skill building is going to be critical. So if there is an extension of the closure into next year, or as that education sort of subcommittee begins working relative to the recovery committee, what we're thoughtful of is if we are looking at an extended closure, what are the metrics that we're going to have put in place to ensure or to sort of make sure that we understand that what we're doing is having an impact and what we're doing is impactful. Where the age of kids that I'm frankly most concerned about is our primary age students, our students in grades preschool, kindergarten 1 and 2. That's where our teachers truly are, and I'm not suggesting our other teachers are not talented, but there's something about walking into a classroom with beginning literacy skills and leaving 10 months later reading, right? There is a magic that happens in our classrooms. And so I'm not convinced that any vendor or tool has an answer for that. But what we have to be very thoughtful of is that those kids who are really learning the base skills needed to be successful in our curriculum are given the opportunity for that exposure and that learning, because where our older kids are now relying on skills they learned at that age, right, to now access our remote learning plans and access the assignments and the work that we're giving to students. So I think as we look to the future, we're really thoughtful of our ability to assess and sort of be held accountable to sort of the success or the lack of success of the program and remote learning in and of itself, as well as what are the stopgap measures, what are the tools, what are the services that we're going to be providing to our students who are most at risk, including our primary age students who are really learning these skills for the first time. And so I think that, the next iteration of the plan does open the door to more direct instruction and support with our kids who are at tier 2 and 3. So the district has a multi-tiered model of academic intervention where we screen our students in skill and identify kids who might be at risk, and then they're given additional supports. And that's where we get into multi-tiers. So you hear me talk about tier 2 and 3. Those are our kids who we identified already as potentially having some gaps or some areas of weakness that we could work on in regular education without requiring an IEP or special education eligibility, because frankly, all of our students at that age need support, right? And so that we can begin to now service those students in small groups, deploy our reading and math specialists in new ways to sort of make sure that they're engaging with those kids in different ways. That's a core part of what the next iteration of remote learning is all about, is beginning to open the door for individualized connections, some of them academic in nature, some of them more social and emotional nature. But again, we've heard the community loud and clear on the real desire to have more live connections with our kids, coupling that with our ability to better meet the needs of our most at-risk learners.
Principal Swanson, the high school traditionally has been sort of like the center of the community educational health when you factor in the likes of sports and the arts on a grand scale. Obviously, we've got students who are not able to participate in team sports here in the spring, and perhaps summer training camps may be somewhat on hold, and big question mark about our traditional football, soccer, and other fall sports. What kind of questions are you hearing from your students and parents as it relates to what can they do to sort of stay in shape and stay ready?
Right, good questions, and I appreciate your remarks about the high school being at the center of, I think, any community, and I like to think of Hingham High School as a real community hub for the town of Hingham, and you know, we're proud to serve that role in partnership with all the schools in our district, each of which plays such a vital part, and it's an enormous source of pride, I think, for all of us here at the high school to see our building and our grounds serve as a real centerpiece for the town. Whether it's the Friday Night Lights, or it's the fall musical, or it's the other plays or the concerts, on and on. There are so many opportunities in which this place becomes a gathering point for the community as a whole, and we're missing out on some really meaningful opportunities this spring. And we're worried about what lies ahead for the fall. You know, in the context of a global pandemic, I've really tried to avoid words like tragedy for losing these things, even though I think it does feel that way for those who look forward to those events so much. And certainly there's heartbreak involved, particularly for our seniors and others who are missing out on whether it's their final athletic season or their final play. You know, just last week we should have had the spring play, you know, right now I'm talking to you on a Wednesday afternoon, and if this were a normal May 13th, I'd be looking out the window of my office at playing fields that are full with literally hundreds of student athletes, from the lacrosse field to softball, baseball, track. The golf team would be off somewhere, and we would have just come off that play. So we are missing out on so much of our community life. We're extremely hopeful that we will see, and I know at some point we will see a return to what we once knew as normal. Whether that happens in the fall is impossible for us to say, but I'm hopeful that students will be taking the steps to, if you're an athlete, to stay in shape, if you're a musician, to keep up with your practicing. And I know there are lots of ways that stuff is happening. I know our coaches throughout the spring have been connecting with their athletes, and I've seen plenty of them out there running on the streets of Hingham and otherwise finding ways to creatively stay in shape, even if the gyms are all closed. I know also that our musicians are hard at work and keeping up with their skills, and very much looking forward tomorrow night to joining a Zoom session where members of the chorus will be delivering some final performances. As another example, this is not from the realm of athletics, but tonight the students in our Global Citizenship Program, who were scheduled to have their final symposium tonight are still having their final symposium. Unfortunately, it's all coming from their homes, and it's going to be happening through Zoom, but they'll be delivering presentations on their independent research project. So I'm impressed by the resiliency that's out there and the creative ways that our advisors and our coaches are finding to continue to inspire achievement in our students. And it gives me hope that when we do come back, we'll be ready to hit the ground running, and we'll soon get back to the things that have made this school such a special place.
Thank you. Final words, Dr. Austin.
No, thank you, Joe. It's once again always a pleasure to see you and spend a little time with you. And I want to reach out to all the families in Hingham, just to say how appreciative we all are of the incredible community of Hingham and the support they give to the schools. We appreciate the patience. We appreciate that they've become teachers in their homes. We appreciate they're going through many things and they're faced with many challenges every day. I've never, in my experience, I've been in education for over 30 years, and I've said this before, that I've never seen anything like this. I don't think anybody could have ever expected a turn of events that we've seen over the last 2 months that has impacted the lives of so many, not just now, but well into the future. What Rick just talked about with hope is really the most critical thing of all. We cannot lose hope. We have hope that we will be back. We will once again, on the hallways of our schools and cafeterias and fields one day. That may still be a way off, but we will do that. We will return at some day, and hopefully sooner than we all want, that we expect, perhaps. I would also say that I know in a time of uncertainty, the community looks for its leaders to give them some certainty, give them some structure that makes us all feel like, okay, we know exactly where we're going tomorrow. And that's difficult to do in this time, but we're not shying away from that. So I can't promise what September 1 looks like in our schools, in around our schools. I can promise that the administrative team, the teachers, our entire school district is going to do everything in its power to be prepared for whatever we're going to face in September. And that's our promise and our commitment to stay the course and to work hard and to do everything we can to serve our students. I thank the members of the community, the town officials that are supporting our school system, and the teachers, and most of all, the most important thing for us, our students, who are enduring much during this time, but they are staying the course, and we are going to get through this together.
Final words, Rick, to your community.
I would like to say to our students, also to our families and to our teachers as well, from the heart, reflecting on what this experience has meant and trying to search for the silver linings that we always hope we'll be able to find in a challenging situation or in any crisis, which this certainly has been. And looking for those silver linings has caused me to think a lot about just what this community means to me personally, and being able to witness what this community means to our teachers and to our students and to all of our families. It's reinforced for me just how much we really mean to each other. And what all of you mean to me is everything. And I know our teachers feel the same way. And waking up every morning knowing that we're not going to be able to come into Hingham High, see the people who mean so very much to us, who feel like family, has been enormously challenging. It's been sad. And I just can't wait to be back. I truly cannot wait to be back in this building with 1,300 students, a faculty of 100, our custodians, our kitchen workers, all of our secretaries, a vibrant, living, loving community that is a great place to be. That is going to come back. And that's just not a statement of optimism, but it is fueled with hope. And it's a fact that we are going to be back here. And to our seniors, who I think are probably feeling the brunt of this more than anybody else, you will be back here too. You will always be part of this community, and we will find ways in the future to bring you back as a whole group to celebrate what you have meant to Hingham from the very start. The class of 2020 is one that has been marked by incredible spirit and unity, and really has found so many ways to personify the highest values of our school. We're not done with you yet. So all is not lost. You're going to belong here forever. We are going to find ways to celebrate you. And for everybody else who's part of this community, I cannot wait to be back with all of you. That day will come. So we're going to keep hope alive, and I can't wait for that day to happen.
Gentlemen, thank you all very much. Keep the faith. Hingham strong.
Got it, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for what you do.